On today's episode, we explain why Penn State star explosive running back Nicholas Singleton is not only a top 5 running back in the class, but he's a perfect fit for this NFL team. We'll talk about that and more coming up next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson. You can find and follow me on X at DP_NFL. I'm a senior draft analyst, and thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and everyday shot for being our everydays. You know, I got to kick the intro to Mr. LSU himself, Keith Sanchez. You can find and follow him on X at TheTalentCode. Keep talk to him, baby.
What's up, Locked On family? Let's get locked in. This is Keith Sanchez, 2019 national champ, man, and the other side to this dynamic duo that we like to call the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to start this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. Every listener is greatly appreciated here. DP. Let's get this show going, man. What do we have? We have perfect pairing, right? Where we pick the draft prospect, and then we pick the NFL team, tell you why that situation is mutually beneficial, right? Then we're going to cover what is the biggest draft storyline right now. We're going to update the people, let people know what we're thinking, what's going on, right? What are the trends that we're seeing? What is the biggest draft storyline? And then wrap this thing up with what Dames dudes. Yes, we putting DP on a hot seat. He got to make some decisions today. There's no playing in the middle. You got to figure out if a guy's in the club or out of the club. We're doing Dames dude. DP, let's start this thing at the very top, man, with perfect pairing, man. What is your perfect pairing?
This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Perfect prospect pairing, Keith. I am looking at Nicholas Singleton, the star running back, one of the star running backs for the Penn State Nittany Lions. And I thought about it, I said, man, there's we talked about Marion Hampton and our guy Ashton Genty and Caleb Johnson. There's a lot of running backs in this class, Keith, Travion, Quinshawn, all of that. Nicholas Singleton may be the most explosive athlete of them all. Like, this guy has an elite burst, speed. He's listed at 6 foot, 228 pounds, almost 230 pounds. And remember, I think it was last week I comped him to David Johnson with the Arizona Cardinals. Mm-hmm. And because of how good of a pass catcher out of the backfield, and not just the functional flat routes, screens. No, he lines up in the slot and runs routes as well. And he tracks the ball, has really good ball skills for a running back. I think about pairing Nicholas Singleton with your boy out of LSU, Jaden Daniels, and the Washington Commanders. Keith, and I think about that RPO read option game. I think about that pistol sets and shotgun runs. Don't get me wrong, Brian Robinson is a good quality back, but they lack explosiveness in that backfield. They lack playmaking in that backfield. Like, they brought in Austin Eckler, who's he could get the job done for the most part, but he's probably on the back stretch of his career after having all those successful years with the Chargers. Nicholas Singleton can literally walk into this situation, and even if you want to not play politics, but just keep it honest, and you play him and Brian Robinson, this will be a really good two-headed rushing attack. And with Brian Robinson, being a bigger body back himself, that like his game is so revolves so much around physicality and power and running through defenders, Keith. Like, he's not the most evasive or elusive guy to make guys miss. Like, yeah, you want to preserve his body as well as preserve Nicholas Singleton's body. And I may be back in round one right now. I mean, like, if they've been hovering between 25 and in the 25 range and stuff like that. If the Commanders were to make this selection and add Nicholas Singleton, you have your back of the future. Right, so you got Brian Robinson. You can let his contract expire, or you can use him as a trade asset. Whatever you want to do. I think Nicholas Singleton will bring the exact thing that they need in that backfield, which is speed, explosiveness, power, a downhill threat that also is dynamic in space with the ball in his hands as a pass catcher. And I just think that's the type of way Jaden Daniels, to me, Keith, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I can't speak for both of us. Jaden Daniels has proven that he's a truck on this team. Mm-hmm. Like, he is their guy. they go as he goes. And especially with Cliff Kingsbury calling plays. You go as Jaden can carry you. I think you put a Nicholas Singleton in that backfield, I think you're cooking with gas.
Yeah, I like that situation, DP, from this perspective. That, like you talked about their backfield, and this is what people, you kind of got to start asking yourself this, right? And I understand the running back by committee theory and things like that, but also when you have running backs that do different things, right? That mean that they have different assets and deficiencies, right, per running back. And so you look at it and like you might put a running back in and it might be a hole created, right? And like let's use the Lions, for example, right? They might have a situation, and that's a good situation. So I'm not even talking about it negatively, but just think about this: that you have an offensive line, you call a running play, right? Like some type of inside power or something like that, right? And then the offensive line blocks you, right? And then David Montgomery just get tripped up, right, by the safety. Well, you look at that and you say, man, well, if Jameer was in the game, would Jameer have broke that for 80 yards, right? And I think that's the situation with the Commanders is that I get it. That combination of Austin Eckler, Brian Robinson is a solid situation. But if you have a guy that can be the combination of both and you don't have to take him off the field because he can do everything, then you have maximum opportunity and output from your running back at all time, right? Like you're not taking him out and bringing in somebody else who's going to offer something different, but it may be a deficiency in something else. Like when Saquon Barkley's on the field, you know that you're getting the best out of the running back position, period, right? And you want to swap it out, but it can hurt you in certain dynamics too. So I like that situation because I think he's kind of a combination of the both of them. I think he's explosiveness, short area quickness. I agree with you, but the catching the ball out of the backfield, right? But also the big body. So he's a combination of both of those. DP. So in my mock draft, I did. I kind of, sometimes, right? You just got to go and be by yourself. You know what I'm saying? You got to be on a hill by yourself, DP. And on that hill, I discovered a guy named Mr. Savion Williams from TCU, and I put him to the Kansas City Chiefs. I think they can do some things with him. I like this guy. I'm gave him a second round grade, I believe, but obviously it's not enough second round grade. So he snuck in at the back end of the first round of my mock draft. But to the Kansas City Chiefs, and I look at it from this perspective that I feel like they'll bring D-Hop back one more year, right? Like if him and Patrick Mahomes continue to figure it out, you have Rashee Rice returning from injury, you got Xavier Worthy, you add a guy like a 6'4", 215-pound explosive guy like a Savion Williams. But the thing is this, that he does everything at TCU. He catches he does wildcat. They line him up at running back. They line him up at H-back. He's playing inline tight end. He's playing slot. He's playing outside. I just think of all the fun things that they can do on top of just him being 6'4" with that short area quickness, right? The things that the Kansas City Chiefs can do with him, I think it puts their wide receiver core, it looks different from when it was Tyreek Hill and McCole Hardman and those guys, but it's probably going to be the best version of that it hasn't been since those days. And we're talking about like 4 or 5 years ago.
No, I like that a lot, Keith. And I think I like it even more so because of the injury from Rashee Rice, right?
Yeah.
It was, I think if I remember correctly, it was kind of a bad knee injury. So it's like he might not be ready to go.
Yep.
Yeah, it was an ACL. So he may not even be ready to rock at the beginning of the season. So you think about that role, because they don't truthfully, I think they brought back Juju to fill that type of power slot, run after catch role. But you put Savion Williams in that role. Oh yeah, I don't need to rush back a Rashee Rice. Let's let him get up to 100% to where mentally, physically, he's really ready to go. And whether he starts the season up on the PUP list and he's out for the first 6 weeks, that's fine. Savion Williams can step into that role and that slot. And what does Andy Reid do so well with Rashee Rice? Get him matched up on linebackers and safeties, run those shake routes and those option routes. And it's like, you have no business covering this guy. You're a linebacker. You should be covering the wide receiver, but how they put you in those compromising positions with alignment, that's how it gets matched up. And I think that Savion Williams will be a great addition to that team. And he gives you the ball skills, the catch radius. I think our guy, the Senior Bowl, shot to Jim Nagy compared him to Cordell Patterson. And, coming out of Tennessee, and, Cordell's been kind of a do-it-all guy, kick returner, punt returner, running back, wide receiver. It doesn't really matter. So, I honestly, I like that fit a lot. That would be one of those fits with Xavier Worthy, maybe Hollywood Brown comes back. Pat Mahomes shouldn't be throwing as many interceptions next year if you make a decision like that and everybody's healthy.
Yeah, I agree. I'm all in on Savion DP. We haven't talked about it yet, but I got some of the same feelings I got when I watched Xavier Legette for the first time, right? And then remember, like nobody else was talking about him, but we were talking about him here. And then Keon Coleman, right? Like we were kind of first to the party with that conversation. I'm like, hey, this dude could be a first round. I feel like that with Savion, and I think that Cordell relegated himself to being a running back.
Yeah.
I think this guy's explosive enough to just kind of do it all. And if you want to put him there just to get a couple reps,
and TCU just doesn't use him enough at wide receiver. They start feeding Jack Besh, who's a good player in his own. But if you put him in the offense that just throws the ball to him, he's a weapon.
Yeah, he could be a wide receiver. So just some things he has to work on. I question, consistency with his hands, but I think it's just him being so raw. But I feel like we felt the same way about Rashee Rice, and the Chiefs were able to get some things out of him too. So DP, let's keep this thing going and flowing. And what are we going to do? We're going to talk about the biggest draft storylines coming up next.
The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a W. I love betting on which players will score a touchdown and how many points each team will score. Guys, it's thrilling. I'm telling you, other things that you can bet on: which players will score a touchdown, how many points each team will score, and again, so much more. FanDuel has all these type of bets for you. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Biggest draft storylines for the 2025 NFL draft coming off of what's the CFP round 1 of CFP. Keith, I go back to the edge rush group, and one of the biggest discussions around this edge rush group, Keith, is just like, man, there's a lot of 3-4 stand-up guys, right? There's like, so people are a little worried. It's like there's no traditional body types. I say look at that Ohio State game, and you look at Ohio State. J.T. Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer. Both of them came out of that game with sacks. Both of them look like traditional defensive ends, and they play like it. You know what I mean? Both of them are strong. They're physical at the point of attack. When they're setting the edge, it's very difficult to run on Ohio State. When they flush you into the middle to Tyreek Williams and Ty Hamilton and I think Sonny Styles and Cody Simon at the second level. And I think that this edge rush group is great regardless. I think it's a legit group, especially from a pure pass rush standpoint. You got multiple guys that could probably be 10-sack guys at the next level. You know what I mean? Putting in the right situation. But for those teams that need that traditional base defensive end, I say that you're still okay. You're still good, whether it's Shamar Stewart. I think Shamar Stewart at 290 pounds, if you want to play him like that. Maybe, Michael Walker, if you want to try and get him up to 270, he's 265. Maybe you want to get him up to 270, let him play with his hand in the dirt and say, listen, maybe you're not a stand-up edge rusher as Georgia thought you were. Whatever. I think for those teams that need that true body type that you look for, heck, LT Overton from Alabama, 6'5", 285. Landon Jackson, 6'7", 280. Ashton Gillette, 6'3", 275. Like I said, Jack Sawyer is 6'5", 260. And then J.T. Tuimoloau is 6'5", 270. There's body types for that base defensive end that can play the run as well as rush the passer, and you'll be fine. I think that's my biggest storyline, because watching those two guys and how they played against that tackle group from Tennessee, like JT and Jack were impressive to me. Like they really made it difficult. Granted, losing Dylan Sampson does not help Tennessee's offense. We talked about it. He's the engine. When that hamstring thing happened, I was like, oh, that's not good.
Yep.
That's a wrap. You know what I mean? Now you're putting Nico in a position he hasn't been in all season. You got to be the truck. And I think he's got the traits and everything to be a truck. He's just not there yet. And we saw that in that game. JT and Jack Sawyer especially, I think those are guys who when the scouts turn on the tape and see how they've played this year overall, I think their stocks are going to be up.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought this up because it kind of got me thinking, right? And that when you see the criticisms of the defensive ends of like the base 4-3, right? And you think of the guys, right? Like you talk about the NFL, the Bosa brothers, Chase Young. I'm trying to think of a couple other like base 4-3 defensive ends that
Miles
should
Garrett.
Miles Garrett. Maybe we should look at that like that's probably more of a rare commodity, right? Than we think, right? To be 270 pounds, but also have the high end pass rush ability, the Aiden Hutchinsons, right? The guys that can put their hand in the ground. So I think just you think about it, like those are probably the more rare guys, right? They can operate at 265, 270, and then still give you double digit sacks, right? Like I feel like Jermaine Johnson as a 4-3 defensive end, hand in the ground guy. He like in that class, he was what, third or fourth or fifth, right? But in this class, would he be the number one guy, right? As far as that combination, just as like, because who would he go over? Because I'm trying to think in his class, the top, right? We talked about the James Pierce, the Michael Williams, the Kyle Kennards. I'm trying to think of.
I think he'd probably be two. He'd be up there with it'll be him and Abdul going for the top
Abdul,
spot.
Right? But I would say, but Abdul is more the stand-up edge rush, right? So, or would you put him hand in the ground? Would you put him hand in the ground?
He does both because he's like 250. I think they have him listed as, but he looks like he looks like a slim 250. Like he's got the crop top showing off the abs. I'm like, he does not look 255 to me.
Me too. I think if you ask me, I think he's 240. Like 242 sometimes. Right?
I agree with that. I agree with that.
And I mean Jalen Walker, right? Another hybrid linebacker. So maybe that's what people are talking about, but also that's the stuff where it's like, hey, like those guys are rare. Like, so we need to covet them more when we do get those guys and be like, hey, this is really special, to be able to be 6'5, 270, and then still provide that ability as a top pass rush. Because I agree with you. If you're talking about body types, right? The Ohio State duo of J.T. and Jack are probably the most ideal body type situation, right? Where these guys, they appear to have good arm length. They stand at 6'4 plus, 265 pounds, right? Like can move well. They're the ideal length. Now the question is the upside for pass rush ability there, right? Are you drafting them and you saying, you know what, plug and play, give me 8 to 12 sacks each and every year? And I think that's a question too.
No, 100%, Keith. I think teams like, truthfully, I mean, I think Detroit, I would love to see, because Detroit's going to need. I know they just traded for I think was it Zadarius Smith, and everything from the Browns and everything to kind of try and like help their pass rush because they're losing so many defensive linemen to injuries this year. It's destroying that team and what they could be, because if they're healthy, they are to me the runaway team in the NFL to win the Super Bowl. Like truthfully, if they're completely healthy, defensively, offensively, the Detroit Lions are punching almost everybody in the mouth. And you got to punch back. That's just what it is with them. Because that offense, that Aiden Hutchinson doesn't get hurt. You got a go-to pass rusher. They lost like 4 corners. Like, it's just tough in Detroit right now. You know what I mean? With those injuries. But you think about if I'm Detroit, I'm like, all right, Aiden's gonna come back. Maybe you see if you keep Sedarius. I look at a Jack Sawyer. I look at a J.T. Tuimoloau, and I said, we got to get another edge rusher, even when Aiden's here. So if you slide protection to Aiden, we got that guy that your left tackle is going to have a problem with, or guys that can flip sides, you know what I mean, and alternate and reverse course. Where now you got Aiden on the left tackle. You trying to, if they got a great left tackle, I'm putting Aiden over there so we can pull like that attention that way. And if they got a weaker right tackle, then I'm putting my secondary rusher. Or I'm just mixing and matching based on that matchup and where's the strength, where's the weakness of the offensive line. I think you look at teams like the Detroit Lions. To me, of course, I think the Minnesota Vikings adding even more pass rush. I know they got, I think, Grenard, they have Dallas Turner, but getting another body type in that room to where maybe you kind of a guy like Jack. So I've seen Jack Sawyer line up at like 4-eye and rush the passer because of his body type, right? JT is the same thing. So like these Shamar Stewart, same thing, 290, 285. The only guy we'll do like an actual scouting topic on them is Nick Scowerton, because he's listed at 285, but he plays from a 2-point stance the best. So it's like, do you want him to drop weight and just play stand-up rusher? Like, what is the plan here with him, and how you want to go about it with him being 20 years old and still getting into that grown man body? But man, I just think this edge rush group is good. And like you said, Keith, it might be a little bit of an anomaly to be like, yeah, we want you to be 275, 280, but also be a 10-digit sack guy, double-digit sack guy year in and year out.
Yep, 100% with DP. You know what's coming up next, man? The hot seat. Dames Dudes is coming up next. Yes, I got a list of prospects. I'm asking them, are they in the club, out of the club? DP, let's get into this conversation.
Today's episode is sponsored by Prize Picks. If you love watching the game, you're going to love Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Whether it's football, basketball, or any of your favorite sports, Prize Picks makes your holidays bigger and brighter. You can now win up to 1,000 times your money on Prize Picks. Plus, this holiday season, they're giving away $30+ million in rewards doing Picksmas and offering 2 free picks in December. And when your picks hit, Prize Picks makes it easy to cash out. You can get your money in as fast as 15 minutes. Guys, I'm telling you now, this is a deal you just don't want to miss. 15 minutes to get your money, your winnings? Yeah, I'm not missing that. How can you not miss it? Simple. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 instantly when you play just $5. Prize Picks, run your game. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? That happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for. And Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitor your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place. Whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year, Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. Keith, it's Dames Dudes. I get to be put in the hot seat. You get to ask me which prospects, these 5 prospects, are they in the club, out of the club, coming off of round 1 in the CFP? Let's get it going.
Yep. Okay, let's start with this, man. Penn State quarterback Drew Aller. In the club, out of the club this week, DP.
Oh, man. Drew Aller, Keith, 13 of 22, 127 yards passing, less than 6 yards per attempt, a QBR 56.8. Didn't turn the ball over, didn't do anything to hurt his team, but he didn't have a huge impact on the game either. He's not in the club. Also, you went back to school, which I wasn't happy with either. So, so you're not in the club this week for varying reasons, but it's still my guy. I think he's going to have Boise State. Listen, all right, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that game. We'll preview that. I'm not going to spoil my take on it, but Boise State, just get ready. That's the only thing I'm going to say.
I know where you're leaning with that. We didn't be in the same boat. All right, coming up next up, we have Emeka Egbuka, wide receiver, Ohio State, in the club, out of the club, DP.
Yeah. Emeka Egbuka, man. Let's see, five catches, 81 yards. Didn't have a touchdown in this game. Wanted to see him get in the end zone. He averaged a little over 16 yards per catch. Yeah, he's in the club, Keith. I talked about it leading into the game. Get him involved early. Get him in the run after catch game, in the short game. Let him keep you ahead of the chains. And they did that. And he made play time and time again when Will Howard, and I felt like that helped settle Will Howard down early in that game, because I felt like going back, I can't remember who they played. Maybe it's the Penn State game. Him coming into that game, Will Howard said, I grew up a Penn State fan. They didn't like me. They didn't recruit me, things of that nature. He took it personal. And I was like, when I heard that, I said, okay, this is a guy that mentally he's going to wear his emotions on his sleeve, but he might come in with a chip on his shoulder. You got to make sure you level him out before this becomes a volcanic situation and he's throwing 3 interceptions trying to prove why he's the better quarterback out of him and Drew Allen, right? That's the type of thing you don't want. And I think that they did a good job getting them settled in. Emeka Egbuka, to me, Keith, I still view him as a first-round prospect, even though like the Ohio State passing attack hasn't been robust and they haven't excelled down the backstretch of the season. I still think that Emeka Egbuka is a round 1 player and a guy that can instantly help a passing offense. Yeah, he's in the club for me.
Yeah, you don't make the same Amon-Ra St. Brown mistake, right? To where it like for some reason, and I don't think anybody has good reason. And I was working at LSU at the time. So I wasn't in the NFL draft space, but I remember Amon-Ra coming out of Mater Dei, right? I remember him being really good, right? Like a really good wide receiver. And I thought he was good at USC. And then when he went in the 4th round, I was like, well, maybe I'm tripping. But seeing how it go in the NFL, just don't make the same mistakes. Because I think, and you gave him that comp, I believe. And I like it a lot, and I see it, and I think that's exactly what it is. Just he gonna get open, catch the football, savvy. He understands the game of football. Don't overthink this. Trying to get into L cone times and shuttle times and 40s and
height 40,
and bringing up different scores and all that. Just can a guy play football? Yes. The end.
Draft
right?
The players.
Yep. Players. The end. All right, let's go with this, man. Ohio State's running back. This is heavy Big Ten, DP. Heavy Big Ten. We went Penn State and 2 Ohio State guys. Quinshon Judkins in the club, out of the club.
Out of the club. I think I said it on yesterday's podcast. I think he needs to go back to school. I don't know if it's Ohio State you need to go back to. Maybe you go to Boise State, become Ashton Jeanty 2.0. I don't know.
What grade did you finish off with him after you watched him? Or where do you have him? What range do you have him in?
3rd.
Yeah. Yep. That's why I finished off high, like late 2, high 3. And it was just not one. And I think even the late 2 was probably more so not wanting to have that big of a swing, right? To say that this guy would be a top 15 prospect to now.
RB1, round 1 to
and so
we
talked about
day 2.
Something missing, DP, and I don't know what, something not adding up, right? 1 + 1 is equaling 5 right now. So there's something else out there that we not getting to. But I just wanted to ask you that.
No, it's tough, man. Like you said, that swing is so great right now with him because it's like, yo, that tape for 2 years at Ole Miss, that is RB1 leading an NFL rushing attack type of tape. And this year, and I get it, the offensive line, I think that's where it's crazy because Travion Henderson looks like he's the more agile, quick twitch runner, and he can work more laterally to where he can create for himself a little bit more. Where Quinshon is like, I can run stretch zone and be a one-cut slashing type, but I'm best with my shoulder square going north and south. And then he's good catching I stick, but it's crazy. I stick with my comp of Kareem Hunt. Like the body type, the strengths and weaknesses of his game coming out. It took a turn. It just really took a weird, wild turn. But Kareem Hunt was like a 4th-round pick.
Yep, 100%. All right, let's keep this thing going, man. Next up, I'm going to go with Texas tight end Gunnar Helms. In the club, out of the club.
Gunnar Helms in the club, man. For one, he has an NFL body and frame with 6'5", like 240, 250. And one thing I think I really appreciated with his game was his run after catch ability. And my comp for him is not Houston Texan, but Dallas Cowboys Dalton Schultz. I look at him as being that guy. If you have good receivers around him and he gets to operate one-on-one in the middle of the field, that underneath, that quick hit option, run after catch stuff, he's not going to wow you a lot with some of the, and I think to me, his ball skills is his best trait. Like he can go up over defenders like a power forward and take the ball off the rim, off a rebound. Like he's really good in those contested catch situations, really good red zone guy because of that. Good body control, can get 2 feet down. I think he's a good player. I think he's my tight end, like 4 or 5 is between him and Jake Brenningstool for that 4th and 5th spot. But yeah, I think he's in the club, man. I like Gunnar Helm, and I think he's going to help an NFL offense, especially teams that like to run 12 personnel. I think he's more set up to be a true tight end 2 than a tight end 1 in the next level.
Yeah, I like Gunner also, and I like that Dalton shows because we talked about that was yesterday's podcast, talked about Gunner, Mason Taylor. That's kind of what I thought about the range for Mason too, like a good starting NFL tight end, right? And I think Gunner can be in that bracket too. Let's wrap this thing up. I'm gonna go to your neck of the woods, DP, out there, Clemson, South Carolina. We're going Clemson offensive tackle Blake Miller in the club, out of the club.
Man, this was a game that he could have been sitting in VIP if he did his job, Keith. No, he's not in the club for me. He struggled. And it's crazy. I was texting, texting Scott, and buddy of mine, and he was like, "Man, he's frustrating." He's like, I look at him. He's like, he's got all the tools and talent to be a guy, like I said, a cornerstone tackle, and 6'6", 315, athletic, strong, all that stuff. He's just technically inconsistent. And you saw that even in this game when he got beat. He's bending at the waist and not at his knees. He's lunging. And it's not like he's top heavy. Like he's some like heavy up top guy that like his weight is pulling him forward like a gravitational pull. He's just not like technically refined. And yeah, like you asked the question, who wants to go in the second round? It was Barron Sorrell. It wasn't Blake Miller in this situation. And so, yeah, he's not in the club. I think for him, I think he's a junior, so he might have one more year left. We got to see what happens. But if I was him, I'll be working from this point forward to the Senior Bowl. And I'm trying to see if I get an invite to the Senior Shrine. And I want to go out there, put my best foot forward and kill it, and then go kill the combine. Because right now, it doesn't look good. He's probably looking around like a third round at earliest at this point.
Yep. Well, DP, that wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to end this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day, man. Every listen is greatly appreciated here over at Locked On NFL Draft. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube. Wherever you listen to the podcast to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen to today and every day. Shout for being our everydayers. On tomorrow's show, we're getting into that rookie report, Keith. Getting into the rookie report. See what these NFL rookies are doing. Is Bo Nix still leading the charge for Offensive Rookie of the Year with these quarterbacks? I'm getting into all of that on tomorrow's show. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.